What if I told you that one of cinema's greatest masterpieces was built on a foundation of mob threats, near-constant firings, and secrets so wild they'd make a mafia don blush? The Godfather isn't just a movie about family loyalty and power, it's a film where the behind-the-scenes chaos was almost as dramatic as anything happening on screen. You think you know everything about Coppola's 1972 epic, but these 24 hidden secrets will change how you watch every single scene. From real horseheads to genuine mob advisors, from improvised violence to actors who were literally terrified of their co-stars, The Godfather's production was a perfect storm of genius and insanity that somehow created cinematic gold. The first secret starts with Marlon Brando's transformation into Don Vito Corleone, and it's more bizarre than you'd ever imagine. During his audition, Brando stuffed cotton balls into his cheeks to create that distinctive bulldog look that made him appear both menacing and grandfatherly. But here's what most people don't know. For the actual filming, those cotton balls were replaced with a custom-made dental appliance that a dentist crafted specifically for the role. That mouthpiece is now sitting in the American Museum of the Moving Image in Queens, a physical reminder of how far Brando went to inhabit this character. The transformation wasn't just cosmetic either. Brando smeared shoe polish into his hair to achieve Don Corleone's aged appearance, refusing the studio's expensive hair and makeup department options. But the weirdness didn't stop there. Remember that iconic opening scene where Vito is calmly stroking a cat while discussing justice and revenge? That feline friend was never supposed to exist. Francis Ford Coppola was walking through the Paramount lot one morning when he spotted a stray cat wandering around. On impulse, he grabbed the cat and told Brando to improvise with it during their first scene together. The cat took to Brando immediately, purring so loudly that it actually muffled some of his dialogue, forcing the sound crew to work overtime in post-production. What seemed like a calculated choice to show Vito's gentle side was actually pure spontaneous magic. Speaking of Brando's unconventional methods, here's something that will blow your mind about those legendary performances. The man who delivered some of cinema's most quotable lines never actually memorized them. Throughout the entire production, Brando used cue cards strategically placed around the set. Sometimes they were taped behind lamps, sometimes held just out of camera range, and in one famous instance, Robert Duvall literally wore them on his chest so Brando could read his lines while looking directly at his co-star. Brando claimed this technique kept his performance fresh and spontaneous, arguing that in real life, people don't have their conversations pre-planned. The irony, his spontaneous delivery of scripted lines became some of the most iconic dialogue in film history. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room, or should I say, the mobsters on the set. The Godfather wasn't just a movie about organized crime. It was actively influenced by real mafia members who weren't thrilled about Hollywood's portrayal of their world. Joseph Colombo Sr., head of the New York crime syndicate, launched an aggressive campaign to shut down production. The Italian-American Civil Rights League, backed by actual mob muscle, demanded that all references to the word mafia be removed from the script entirely. Producer Albert Ruddy was so terrified of retaliation that he constantly switched cars with his staff. The intimidation campaign reached its peak when someone blew out the windows of Ruddy's car as a not-so-subtle message. The mob's involvement went deeper than just threats, though. Al Lettieri, who played the drug dealer Virgil Sollozzo, had genuine connections to organized crime through his brother-in-law's family ties. Having a real person with mob connections playing a villain added an authenticity that no amount of method acting could achieve. Meanwhile, Coppola actually held a secret screening of the finished film exclusively for mobsters, stealing a print from Paramount to get their unofficial approval. The fact that the film portrayed the mafia as a complex family organization rather than simple criminals apparently satisfied their concerns enough to let production continue. But while the mob was making external threats, internal chaos was tearing the production apart. Al Pacino, now considered one of the greatest actors of his generation, was on the verge of being fired because studio executives thought his performance was too bland and understated. They wanted the flashy, explosive energy of a traditional gangster movie, not the quiet intensity that Pacino was bringing to Michael Corleone. The studio had originally pushed for established stars like Robert Redford or Ryan O'Neal to play Michael, actors who fit their vision of a conventional leading man. Pacino's unconventional approach nearly cost him the role that would define his career. Francis Ford Coppola himself was constantly on the chopping block. Studio executives had backup directors waiting in the wings, ready to take over the moment Coppola was fired. The young director was saved only by Marlon Brando's loyalty and the powerful footage of Michael's restaurant assassination scene, which finally convinced executives that Coppola's vision was working. Without Brando's support and that one pivotal scene, we might have gotten a completely different Godfather from a different director. The wedding scene that opens the film took 3 full days to shoot with over 700 extras, creating a logistical nightmare that pushed the production to its limits. To manage the chaos and add authenticity, Coppola encouraged the cast to freely improvise in the background while he captured specific vignettes throughout the celebration. This approach created the lived-in feeling that makes the Corleone family gathering feel genuinely familial rather than staged. Here's where things get genuinely disturbing. That infamous horsehead scene where movie producer Jack Woltz wakes up to find his prized stallion's severed head in his bed. They used a real horse head obtained from a dog food factory. During rehearsals, they had used a fake prop, but for the actual take, John Marley, the actor playing Woltz, was given no warning about the switch. His scream of horror and revulsion was completely genuine because he had no idea he'd be waking up next to an actual severed animal head. The authenticity of his reaction comes from the authentic trauma of the moment. Even legendary figures were rejected for key roles. Orson Welles, one of cinema's greatest directors and actors, lobbied hard to play Don Vito Corleone, but was turned down by the studio. They considered him too much of a risk and too difficult to work with, ironically choosing Brando instead, an actor with an equally challenging reputation, but more box office appeal. Hidden throughout the film is a subtle symbol that most viewers never consciously notice but subconsciously understand. Oranges appear in nearly every scene where demise is approaching or violence is about to occur. This wasn't accidental. Production designer Dean Tavoularis deliberately placed oranges as harbingers of doom, while cinematographer Gordon Willis used them to add spots of brightness to his notoriously dark lighting style. For Coppola, oranges also represented Italy itself, connecting the American crime family to their ancestral homeland. The film's haunting musical score, composed by Nino Rota, almost didn't make it into the final cut. Studio executives thought the music was too dark and oppressive for a commercial film, demanding something more upbeat and accessible. Coppola had to fight tooth and nail to preserve Rota's atmospheric compositions, which are now considered essential to the film's emotional impact. Ironically, the score was later disqualified from Oscar consideration when it was discovered that Rota had recycled some themes from his earlier work on the 1958 Italian film Fortunella. One of the film's most authentic performances came from genuine terror. Lenny Montana, who played the massive enforcer Luca Brasi, was a former professional wrestler with no acting experience. He was so intimidated by Marlon Brando that he couldn't deliver a single usable take during his scene in Don Corleone's office. Instead of recasting or reshooting, Coppola brilliantly added a new scene showing Luca Brasi nervously rehearsing his lines before meeting the Godfather, turning Montana's stage fright into character development. The film's opening line, "I believe in America," was filmed at the last minute with minimal preparation, yet it perfectly establishes the themes of immigrant dreams and moral compromise that run through the entire saga. This seemingly throwaway moment of a man seeking justice from the Godfather instead of the legal system encapsulates the film's central conflict between Old World loyalty and New World institutions. James Caan brought an unpredictable energy to Sonny Corleone that went beyond what was written on the page. He improvised much of Sonny's explosive violence, including a moment where he actually smashed a camera during filming. Caan's commitment to the character's volatility was so intense that it sometimes crossed the line from acting into genuine aggression, creating an atmosphere of real danger on set that translated perfectly to screen. The revolutionary editing sequence that intercuts Michael's godson's baptism with the simultaneous massacre of rival family heads was groundbreaking for its time. The juxtaposition of sacred ceremony with brutal violence, cutting between actual church footage and staged eliminations, created a new language for depicting moral corruption. This sequence alone influenced decades of filmmakers and established techniques still used in modern cinema. Diane Keaton, who played Michael's wife Kay, was so shocked by the film's graphic violence that she didn't watch the completed movie for years after its release. Her natural reactions to the brutality surrounding her character weren't entirely acting. She was genuinely disturbed by the world she found herself portraying. Meanwhile, Al Pacino nearly walked away from the project entirely due to the constant pressure and poor treatment from studio executives who didn't understand his approach to the character. The stress of fighting for his vision while being constantly threatened with replacement pushed Pacino to his breaking point. His perseverance through this adversity helped create one of cinema's most compelling character arcs. Behind all the creative struggles was a harsh financial reality. Paramount Pictures gave Coppola an extremely limited budget, forcing the production team to find creative solutions for expensive sequences. The small budget that studio executives thought would contain costs actually pushed the filmmakers toward more innovative approaches that enhanced the film's authentic, gritty atmosphere. The transformation of The Godfather from troubled production to cultural phenomenon reveals how the film industry's most challenging projects sometimes yield its greatest triumphs. Francis Ford Coppola, at just 33 years old, was directing what many considered an impossible adaptation of Mario Puzo's sprawling novel. The book had become a massive bestseller, but translating its complex family dynamics and intricate plot to the screen seemed like a task that would defeat even experienced filmmakers. Coppola's approach to research was obsessive and methodical. On the Paramount lot, his production office featured a massive bulletin board covered with dozens of photographs from real mob hits and funeral services from the 1940s and 1950s. This grisly collection of authentic crime scene documentation helped inform the visual style and emotional tone of the film's violence. Coppola compiled everything into a 720-page notebook that became his Bible throughout production, containing not just plot details but cultural research, family trees, and historical context that brought unprecedented depth to the storytelling. The casting process revealed Hollywood's fundamental misunderstanding of what The Godfather needed to be. Before Coppola took the job, several prestigious directors, including Elia Kazan, Arthur Penn, Richard Brooks, and Costa Gavras, had all turned down the opportunity. They recognized that adapting Puzo's novel would require navigating both artistic challenges and potential real-world dangers from organized crime figures who wouldn't appreciate their portrayal. Robert De Niro's early career was shaped by his near miss with The Godfather. He auditioned for multiple roles, including Sonny Corleone, but was ultimately passed over for James Caan. Instead of joining the first film, De Niro chose to work on The Gang That Couldn't Shoot Straight, a decision that initially seemed like a career mistake. However, this rejection led directly to his casting as young Vito Corleone in The Godfather Part 2, a performance that won him his first Academy Award and established him as one of cinema's finest actors. The age dynamics among the cast created some amusing behind-the-scenes situations. James Caan and Al Pacino were only 10 years younger than Morgana King, who played their mother in the film. Meanwhile, John Cazale, who portrayed the middle brother Fredo, was just 5 years younger than King. These minimal age differences required careful makeup work and performance choices to maintain the illusion of generational hierarchy within the Corleone family structure. Al Pacino's personal connection to the story went deeper than most audiences realized. His maternal grandparents had actually emigrated to America from Corleone, Sicily, the same Sicilian town that served as the fictional Vito Corleone's birthplace. This ancestral connection helped Pacino understand the cultural tensions between old-world values and American ambitions that drive Michael's character throughout the saga. The financial arrangements for the cast revealed Hollywood's inability to predict the film's eventual success. Al Pacino earned just $35,000 for his star-making performance, the same amount paid to James Caan and Diane Keaton, and actually $1,000 less than Robert Duvall received. However, Pacino's career trajectory changed so dramatically after The Godfather's release that by the time he signed on for Part 2, he commanded a salary of $600,000 plus 10% of the film's adjusted gross income. Weather conditions nearly derailed the production before it even began. Filming was originally scheduled to start on March 29, 1971, with the scene of Michael and Kay leaving a New York department store after Christmas shopping. When weather reports predicted snow flurries for March 23rd, producer Albert Ruddy decided to move the filming date forward to capture the atmospheric conditions. Ironically, the predicted snow never materialized, forcing the crew to use artificial snow machines to create the winter setting they had hoped nature would provide. The pressure from Paramount executives created a constantly hostile work environment that pushed everyone to their limits. Coppola was given specific orders to deliver a cut no longer than 2 hours and 15 minutes, or else the editing process would be moved from San Francisco to Los Angeles and taken out of his control. When Coppola delivered exactly that length, executives told him he had shot a movie but brought down a trailer, meaning his version felt like a long preview rather than a complete film. Even after the studio eventually supported a longer cut, they still moved the editing to Los Angeles as punishment for Coppola's creative stubbornness. The complexity of certain action sequences pushed special effects technology to new limits. The demise of Sonny Corleone at the toll plaza required James Caan's suit to be rigged with 127 individual pouches of fake blood that exploded in sequence to simulate machine gun fire. The coordination required for this sequence was so intricate that it could only be filmed once. There was no opportunity for multiple takes or safety nets. Similarly, the assassination of Police Captain McCluskey required innovative makeup techniques that seem primitive by today's standards, but were revolutionary for 1972. The crew built a fake forehead on top of Sterling Hayden's real head, complete with a carefully concealed gap filled with fake blood and sealed with prosthetic flesh. During filming, this plug was yanked out with fishing line to create the sudden appearance of a bullet hole, an effect that shocked audiences with its realistic brutality. The film's release strategy reflected Paramount's continued uncertainty about its commercial potential. Originally scheduled for a Christmas 1971 release, the date was pushed back to allow editors time to work with Coppola's preferred longer cut. This delay inadvertently created more anticipation and allowed word of mouth to build among industry insiders who had seen early screenings. When The Godfather finally opened in March 1972, the public response was unprecedented. Lines to see the film became legendary, particularly in Westwood near UCLA, where enterprising students charged $5 to hold places in line for moviegoers. The film's cultural impact was immediate and lasting, introducing phrases like "I'll make him an offer he can't refuse" into everyday conversation and establishing a new standard for serious crime drama. The success of The Godfather vindicated every creative decision that had been questioned during production. Coppola's insistence on period-accurate settings rather than updating the story to contemporary times proved essential to the film's authenticity. His choice of relatively unknown actors over established stars created fresh performances without the baggage of previous screen personas. Most importantly, his refusal to simplify the novel's complex moral ambiguity resulted in a film that respected its audience's intelligence. Robert Towne, who would later write Chinatown, contributed uncredited work to one of the film's most crucial scenes, the garden conversation between Vito and Michael, where the aging Don teaches his reluctant son how to assume leadership of the family, required delicate writing that balanced exposition with emotional depth. Towne's contribution helped create a scene that serves as the emotional and thematic heart of the entire saga. The involvement of Coppola's family members throughout the production added layers of personal meaning to the professional achievement. His sister, Talia Shire, played Connie Corleone in all three films, while his mother, Italia Coppola, appeared as an extra in the restaurant meeting scene. His father, Carmine Coppola, contributed music and appeared as a piano player during one of the film's quieter moments. This family participation reflected the story's own themes about loyalty, tradition, and the complex bonds that both strengthen and constrain family relationships. The ultimate irony is that The Godfather, born from financial desperation and creative compromise, ended up saving Paramount Pictures from bankruptcy. The studio that nearly eliminated the project through interference and budget constraints was rescued by the very film they tried to control. The movie became the highest-grossing film of 1972 and briefly held the record as the biggest box office hit in cinema history. The success of The Godfather vindicated every creative decision that had been questioned during production. Coppola's insistence on period-accurate settings rather than updating the story to contemporary times proved essential to the film's authenticity. His choice of relatively unknown actors over established stars created fresh performances without the baggage of previous screen personas. Most importantly, his refusal to simplify the novel's complex moral ambiguity resulted in a film that respected its audience's intelligence. Robert Towne, who would later write Chinatown, contributed uncredited work to one of the film's most crucial scenes, the gun conversation between Vito and Michael, where the aging Don teaches his reluctant son how to assume leadership of the family, required delicate writing that balanced exposition with emotional depth. Towne's contribution helped create a scene that serves as the emotional and thematic heart of the entire saga. The involvement of Coppola's family members throughout the production added layers of personal meaning to the professional achievement. His sister Talia Shire played Connie Corleone in all three films, while his mother, Italia Coppola, appeared as an extra in the restaurant meeting scene. His father, Carmine Coppola, contributed music and appeared as a piano player during one of the film's quieter moments. This family participation reflected the story's own themes about loyalty, tradition, and the complex bonds that both strengthen and constrain family relationships. The ultimate irony is that The Godfather, born from financial desperation and creative compromise, ended up saving Paramount Pictures from bankruptcy. The studio that nearly eliminated the project through interference and budget constraints was rescued by the very film they tried to control. The movie became the highest-grossing film of 1972 and briefly held the record as the biggest box office hit in cinema history. Critics initially dismissed The Godfather as excessively violent and morally questionable, yet it went on to win the Academy Award for Best Picture. The film that was considered too brutal and dark for mainstream audiences became the gold standard for serious filmmaking, proving that audiences were ready for more complex, morally ambiguous storytelling than Hollywood had previously offered. The final runtime of 2 hours and 55 minutes represented a victory for Coppola's artistic vision over studio commercial concerns. Every minute of that extended length serves the story, allowing characters to develop naturally and relationships to build gradually, rather than rushing toward plot points. The decision to preserve the film's leisurely pace proved that audiences were ready for more sophisticated storytelling than Hollywood had previously offered. These 24 incredible secrets reveal that The Godfather's enduring greatness and legendary status emerged not from any kind of smooth professional production process, but instead from an atmosphere of creative chaos, genuine fear, constant uncertainty, and the dramatic collision of pure artistic vision with harsh, unforgiving reality. Every single iconic moment that audiences remember decades later, every memorable line that became part of popular culture, and every powerful, career-defining performance was forged and shaped in an atmosphere of constant crisis, genuine danger, and creative desperation that somehow, against all odds, produced the purest form of cinematic magic ever captured on film. The next time you watch Don Corleone calmly make someone an offer they simply can't refuse, take a moment to remember that the film itself was essentially an offer that studio executives, critics, and even some cast members almost refused at virtually every single step of its chaotic, tumultuous, and absolutely extraordinary creation process.